Good day, YouTube. It is super duper windy out today, so we'll see how this goes. I'm over here on the highfalutin hoity-toity side of town. They have a nice coffee shop up here at the resort, Ventana Canyon Resort. So I stopped for coffee, had a little smoke, watched some golfers mess up their game, and then I got ready to go. The bike gave me a backfire and wouldn't start. I love it when that kind of stuff happens on the side of the road, but you know, when you own an Enfield, that's really just the way it goes. So, troubleshooting, I stop and I look around and say, okay, what causes a backfire? Well, that could be the mixture. So let's look at the carburetor. Yeah, the carburetor was just barely connected to the intake manifold, which is a rubber hose. I'd replaced it long ago, the factory one, with a piece of radiator tubing because it's same diameter, and the rubber made here for the rubber that we can get for parts here in the United States is far superior to the rubber that came on the bike from India. So looking at that, I could see that it had slipped off. That would be the cause of my backfire. Probably the result of the backfire as well. So I inspected the hose. It's not leaky or anything, just the clamp came loose. And when that clamp came loose, let enough air in, sputtered, backfired, and there you go. So there you have it. When you have a motorcycle that vibrates as much as a 500cc single, non-balanced single, you can expect these sort of things. So I have my handy dandy toolkit and was able to address the issue right away. So it took me I'd say less than 5 minutes to go ahead and button the carburetor back up, check the cable, make sure everything was fine. And as soon as I did, of course, bang, it started right away. So it's just funny. Every time I go out for a ride and I get home, as the bike's cooling off, I'll go out and check on it and touch a few of the nuts and bolts that wiggle loose and address those issues. Because if you don't, they will certainly show themselves. But I have to admit, since I replaced that hose, I had not touched those clamps. So I replaced the hose when I did the final adjustment on my jets, when I upjetted the carburetor for the open air intake and the open exhaust. Ooh, man, I was building up a little bit of a sweat wearing this leather jacket while I was working on the bike there in the parking lot, and now that I'm rolling, it's actually kind of cool. I think the temperature's maybe 65 out right now. At any rate, just thought I'd come on and catch a little bit of this beautiful scenery out here. This side of town is always just looks so great. There you go. Now folks, you see those mountains in the horizon? And I know you can see them. Those mountains right there are 50 miles away, 50 miles away. Those are the Santa Ritas. They're about 50 miles as the crow flies from where I'm at. That's how clear and open it is right now. It's beautiful. It's also how tall those damn mountains are. So I think I told you folks in one of the previous videos that I had hit 4,000 miles on this bike, and 3,500 of those were mine. So I figure that's 3,500 miles in 1 year of ownership. I took ownership of this bike last October, so October of 2013. And you know what? It's given me far more smiles than it has anything else. It's also so simple to work on that even that little mishap this morning, it took me less than 5 minutes to correct. So I figure a little 1 year of ownership motorcycle review was in order. So what have I done to the bike? Well, there's previous videos that I have up, and maybe I'll go ahead and link to those in case you want to go back and look and see what all the mods were that I've done. But the biggest things were the air intake and the exhaust for performance, along with upjetting the carburetor. And in addition to that are the tires. Those are the things that have made the biggest difference for me. Now, this is a 2002. I got it in 2013, and it didn't have many miles on it, so it still had the stock tires. The stock tires, man, they looked fantastic. They had the original look of 1960s and 1950s tires. Those real thin front ribs. I mean, just good looking tires on this bike, but ultimately over the course of 11 or 12 years that they'd been sitting around, they'd gotten kind of hard, and they weren't real good for handling, so I replaced them. These Shinko 777s. And after the tires, the exhaust, the carburetor, the air intake upgrades, this bike has just run like a dream. I mean, as long as you don't expect it to do more than it's capable of. You obviously, with this bike, a 4-speed transmission, 500cc with a big guy like me on it, you can't expect that you're going to be able to hop on the freeway and just go. That's not going to happen. But for busting around town, running errands, I don't commute off of any big roads, so it's really just my commute is riding back and forth to work through town. And for going through town and such, perfect bike for that. Absolutely perfect for that. And in saying that, you know, something that needs to be kept in mind. Oh, I got a green arrow. Is that the newer bikes are fuel injected. They have a 5-speed, and they're not literally built after the 1955 design. So they've had some upgrades and reliability, and the factory in Chennai, India, where this one was built, they have a new factory and it's partially automated, so some of the welds and things like that have gotten more consistent as far as fit and construction goes. But so, you know, don't think to yourself that my review of this particular bike, and because I'm talking about the old iron barrels, is how they're referred to in the Royal Enfield community. This bike is an iron barrel, and the new ones are alloy barrels, so they cool off a lot better. You can hammer them a little bit more. So don't put it out if what you can get a hold of is one of the newer bikes. Then by all means, you have all the rides that I've done. I've got somewhere near 50 videos that you can go back and watch and review and get an idea of their performance. And keep in mind, I rarely ever flog this bike. In fact, I really don't ever. I'm pretty gentle on most things that I own. I just don't see a need to really squeeze every last inch out of something just to see what it's capable of, or push that limit every day on a daily basis. Obviously, this person in front of me doesn't either. At any rate, I'm fairly gentle on my stuff, other than my size. my size is not very gentle on this bike, and I've made some adjustments for that. Obviously I bumped up the preload on the shocks, and the front, I haven't replaced the springs, but I went with a better fork oil, and I started with the stock amount and then made adjustments from there to sort out my ride, so I didn't get too big of a dip on braking and stopping or deceleration, but at the same time don't have a really stiff ride that's difficult to handle. So overall, fun bike. If you like to tinker on stuff, if you're one of those people that likes to go out in the garage and just tinker on stuff, get one of the older ones like I have, because it's fun to do. It really is. And if you understand basic mechanics, well, you can get out there and work on this bike. I mean, it's not that hard. I have a friend that has a Suzuki. I don't know. I think they predated the Boulevards. But anyway, it's a 1400 beast, right? And that bike, it's got twin carbs on it, and one of the carburetors, I think the float is stuck, because he'll start it up, bike runs great, sounds great, vroom, wants to go, but he'll turn it off, and his carburetor will sit there and leak gas for 3 or 4 minutes. And that's not good. But I was researching, because this is the kind of guy I am. I mean, he's a capable mechanic as well, but he's just not into getting in the garage and fixing stuff. He's got several motorcycles. He just rides something else for now, until he can think of a time to get to it. But as for me, I think to myself, well, I'll go ahead and look and see what it takes to fix that. And boy, oh boy, you got to pull the gas tank. You got to take all sorts of stuff off. Cool bike. You got to take all sorts of stuff off of that bike just to get in there and take the carburetor off, see what the issue is with the float bowl. Probably just needs a good cleaning and a rebuild, but you might have to replace some little springs or something like that in there. Maybe the float has a pinhole leak and it fills up with gas, whatever the case may be. But that simple, what should be a simple little fix, man, requires tearing quite a bit of that bike apart. And I think that's, of course, why he hasn't done it yet. But it's just amazing, because on this bike right here, I could pull that carburetor off in less than 5 minutes, change the jets, and right back on it. So, don't feel like just because you even pick up one of these bikes that's a little bit older, you'll certainly have fun tinkering with it. And let me tell you something. If I stop long enough anywhere for someone to approach me, they will. If I stop long enough for someone to come over and ask me a question, it will happen. And as far as those questions go, they're all pretty much the same. The interesting ones, I always answer truthfully. I never try to pass this bike off as a 1955. So I always answer truthfully, and it always shocks people. And they always express, you can see just a little bit of disappointment in their face when they realize that it's a 2002 and not a 1955. But the questions usually get shot at you like, is that original? Well, I guess technically I could say yes, this is original, because it's not like I took a Honda and put Royal Enfield stickers on it. So yes, it's original, but when you're at an intersection, you're shouting through a helmet and you got earplugs in, it's really hard to have that intricate conversation with somebody, But I get it. Hey, what year is it? 2002. No way. Okay, that's how that conversation goes. Not a problem. The issue I take is with those fellows that see you and then they go, is that a real one? Are you kidding me? Is it a real one? Well, no, it's a fake motorcycle. It's not a motorcycle at all. I'm actually driving a car. I mean, come on. Is it a real one? And I know what they mean. What they want to know is it a genuine 1955? But again, it's hard to explain to people at an intersection. Man, I feel like I'm shouting because I have earplugs in. I probably am. That's what happened on my last video. I had earplugs in, so I was like shouting the whole time. Maybe I should just try and talk more gentle. Of course, by this time you've probably adjusted your volume. But at any rate, those are the ones I don't get, because the question itself is offending, as though anything other than a genuine, well, then you're on a fake. And it's not a fake bike. It's still Royal Enfield. Royal Enfield started the Indian factories before they closed the ones in England. So, you know, if you see a modern Triumph, I think about half of the Triumphs that get made now are being made in Thailand or some such thing. So, is your Triumph a fake one or a real one? I don't get that. You know, there are some Harley Davidsons, the Street 500 and Street 750, that are also being made in India. So, I suppose an immediate question I could ask then, is that a real Harley or is it a fake Harley? I mean, come on. Those are the questions that I really don't like. It's people ask those, I just kind of shake my head and look away. Hey, get a hold of yourself, young man. I say young man, he's probably old enough to be my father, but... So anyway, I don't know. I wouldn't classify that as a rant. I'm just simply pointing out the kind of questions you get when you do ride one of these bikes. I get it. People are curious. It looks the part. It certainly looks the part. If Hollywood got a hold of some of these and dressed them up right, they could make movies all day long with really cheap motorcycles that look like super expensive classic bikes. But nope. Don't try to fake anybody out with it. There's no sense in it. It's a 2002, man. I like riding it. And that's one of the reasons why I ride it so much. Could you imagine if I really did have a 1955 Royal Enfield or an Indian that was made by Royal Enfield back then? Man, I sure as heck wouldn't take it out and put 3,500 miles on it every year. I'll tell you that much. Sure as heck wouldn't take it out in Tucson traffic or leave it parked outside of a pub when I go out at night. So at any rate, I just thought I'd pop on and say, as far as doing a review of my Royal Enfield after a year of ownership, I'd say it's a cool bike for tooting around town. You get one of the newer ones, so you have something with a little stronger capabilities. But same traffic though. It's great for tooting around town and getting lots of looks. If you like to have conversations with people. Speaking of which, over the course of the last several days, I've had people come up and talk to me about the bike, and then they'll see the GoPro on they'll see the GoPro on my helmet, or the GoPro on the handlebars or something like that. Oh wow, do you have your own YouTube channel for it? Yep, I sure do. So I've had 2 new subscribers over the last 2 days just from people I've met. And then they went back and looked up my videos and ended up subscribing. So thank you. Appreciate that. I hope you derive some joy out of my rambling or my long droning videos. It's always fun to see other people get excited about these bikes as well. Really about any motorcycles. So at the risk of making another 20-minute video, I just thought I'd drop that out there. Fun bikes, great for beating around the city. They're inexpensive, so you don't have to feel like you're throwing the miles around on a classic or a very expensive motorcycle that maybe you want to preserve for something else. They're just straight up fun bikes. So that's all I have for you. Thanks for watching. Do-do-do-do-do-do.